I'm Tracy Foster, and I work for Knox County Information Technology Office, and I'm a training coordinator for the office. I do the computer software training and database support and so forth around the county, and I've been here around 12 years, I think, maybe 13. It's getting up there. I've forgotten.
Well, Tracy, I understand that when you're not at work, you do some charity work overseas and some stuff like that. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
I started a nonprofit called Project Being There. We got the title or the name of our nonprofit, wherever there's a human being, there's an opportunity for kindness. It's a Seneca quote. And we work with an orphanage overseas, St. Anne's Orphanage in Nam Dinh, Vietnam. And we started the nonprofit. I guess the inspiration, you would say, is that I have 3 children adopted from Vietnam. And we wanted to keep them connected with their birth country. And we also wanted to look after the children that were left in the orphanage that are not adopted. We're not an adoption agency. We're there to improve the quality of life for the children that are still in the orphanage. And at this point, they will not be adopted. There aren't any adoptions from this particular orphanage that we work with. So once the children come into the orphanage, they'll be there until they age out. And our commitment to these children is to see them until they are out of the orphanage, and beyond that, to make sure that their future has hopefully some opportunities for them to be able to support themselves and be self-sustaining after they leave the orphanage, although they have no family to help them. So that's sort of our goal.
So how do you help improve the life of the orphans at the orphanage? How does that work?
Well, we're a small little group, grassroots for sure, and we basically do things as we can financially. The first thing we did was to raise money to pay for a heart surgery for one of the children. He had to have this surgery, and in Vietnam, if you pay before you get the medical procedure. So we raised money to help with this procedure. That was a life-saving procedure. He was only going to live a couple more years without it. So that was our first thing, and then we went to the orphanage, visited, and let them give us some ideas of what they felt like their needs were and what we could feel like we could afford to help them take care of. One of the things that was a big issue at the orphanage is that they were, the children and the orphanage staff, they were washing dishes, cleaning their vegetables, all types of produce. All of that was done in a pond. And so when you were finished with your dishes, you went to the pond and washed them in the pond. When you wanted to wash any type of vegetables or any type of produce to eat, you washed it in the pond. So our next project was to build sinks. We built sinks in a kitchen area for the orphanage staff to use in preparation of their food. And then we built sinks for the children to use to wash and brush their teeth and so forth in. And so although it seems, of course, sinks there are not exactly like sinks here. The children's sinks are on the outside of their building with an overhang. The kitchen sinks are outside with an overhang, but nevertheless, they were very thrilled to get them.
So what inspires you? I mean, I know you said that you adopted a child or you have 3 adopted children from Vietnam. How did this whole thing start for you?
Well, we wanted to have a family, my husband and I, and we were, a little bit up in years, surprisingly, and we decided that we wanted to adopt, and that was the way that we were going to build our family. And it's just sort of funny how you end up in a situation, and we looked around, and based on our age and the length of time we'd been married, our best option was an international adoption, and then from there we looked at countries that we were able to adopt from based on their requirements and criteria. And Vietnam was the country that suited our needs, and we suited theirs, and so that's where we went for our first adoption in 2002.
I just have basically 2 more questions. One is, how does something in your background, or what in your background leads you as an individual to go from we want to start a family, so let's adopt, to now we're turning this into a substantial charitable operation overseas? What in your background makes you to kind of connect those dots?
Wow. I think that one of the things I think that pushes you in the direction to move on beyond the adoptions is that when you travel to these countries that are developing countries, you realize how well, we have it here in the U.S. And so, it's hard to look around and hard to walk away from that and not, be impacted by that. And so, we didn't, we couldn't walk away with our children and not remember the cries of the children that were still in the orphanage. And sometimes they weren't cries, which was even more difficult, is when a child would come to you and want attention. And you put them down and they cry. But they don't make noise because crying. Sorry. Probably shouldn't have gone here. Because crying doesn't get them any attention, and so they learn not to make noise because they don't get a response from the noise. So, it's even more disturbing. And so we had our children, and we came home with them, and we were thrilled to have each of our adoptions completed, but we couldn't walk away. And when we adopted, you also make a commitment in the adoption ceremony in Vietnam to keep your children connected to their birth country. And, it's something that you agree to as part of the adoption. And so we took that seriously as well. And, we want our children to know, their birth culture. We want them to also understand that, it's play it forward kind of thing, and so that they understand that we all have a place, and you can be a small little group like ours, just a single family, but the reality is there are always people out there who share a common interest with you, and you just have to find them. And we did, and through our adoption group here in Knoxville, and through other people who care about these children, we have been able to build Project Being There. And it's a lot of work, and it's an investment in time, much more than I ever thought that it would be. There are a lot of sacrifices that come with doing something like this. Because I work full time, so I do this in my off hours. And my children, when I'm off to do things, often they're with me, but sometimes they're not. And they'll say, "Mom, is this Project Being There? Are you going to Project Being There?" And that's always, sometimes it isn't, but that's always their first thought, is Mom is heading out the door for something to do with Project Being There. But it's a part of our lives now, and it's something that you can't walk away from once you get started.
So, last question here, and that's for somebody that they want to get involved in something. Maybe they don't want to do or can't do something as big as what you're doing. Sometimes it's just overwhelming. We have a full-time job, and you want to do something, but I just don't have the time. Any words of encouragement for those folks to kind of let them know that they can do that?
Well, I think that first you have to look at where you have an interest and where your heart is, because in doing volunteer work, you have to really have a commitment for what you're doing, because again, it is volunteer work and it's in your free time. So if you're not You're not always in your comfort zone, but once you make the commitment, it seems to flow much easier for you from that point forward.
Tracy, I appreciate you taking some time.
Okay, thank you.